something ahead of time just in case this happens. During the morning service, if like a SWAT Team 6 comes flying in here at 100 miles an hour, tackles me, arrests me, and takes me away, don't worry, okay? I'll probably get out of it. I just feel I need to confess that. The strangest thing happened yesterday morning. I figure I'll tell you why. I probably shouldn't this close to getting arrested. Crazy. Well, so I've been doing some work at the home and at the house, getting some rooms cleaned up. You know, you always have that one room in your house that is the catch-all room. You know, you just throw everything in there, the pop cans, the extra shoes, everything. So Kim's kind of wanted that cleaned out for a couple years and months. And so she thought, you know what, we got all these pictures in these big, huge plastic totes. And they're big and they're bulky and they're heavy. And she thought it'd be a lot better if those totes were smaller and easier to move around. We could segment them a little bit. And so I went to Walmart yesterday and I went there and I went to go get some and I grabbed 6 to get there. And of course, you know, you need the matching lids, right? There's only 4 lids. So what do? I put 2 of the other ones back. I went down and they're a little bit more expensive. I got 2 of the other ones. I put them in the cart, got a couple other things. I went to the checkout and a nice lady was there, so I put some stuff on the cart right there, and then I lifted the stuff up. I put the 2, and she beeped it 2 times, and I brought up the 4, and she beeped that 4 times and did all that, and I paid and I went on my way, and everything seemed to be fine. Until I started putting the pictures away. So I went and I lifted one of these boxes open, and I took them apart. And in the bottom of one of those boxes, there's about 6 to 8 Halloween costumes for small dogs. So I ruined somebody's shoplifting day. Apparently somebody was trying to stash them there. And of course, what if the lady would have asked me to take them apart, right? Then security comes over with their M16s and stuff like that, and they got red lasers all over me. And then they'd probably say, do you have any small dogs? Which I have 3 of them. So what would that look like? So, I promise you, I'm going to take them back. I promise you I'm going to take them back. I didn't take them apart. I put them right there. They're in the bag. They're waiting. But I just thought, you know, the funniest thing that would happen to me while I'm preaching. So if they come out of anywhere, just so you know that ahead of time. Okay? We good? All right? You want to hang on me? Good? Okay, good. You asked me to step down. Sure, okay. And so we're in the book of James. And maybe a couple of you remember the last time I spoke, I confessed about how I had fallen asleep in a meeting, and Dave I kind of blew it as far as the direction he wanted me to take it to the Psalms. Probably 2 of you remember that. So now we're in the book of James, and Dave's doing a great job teaching along. So he comes to this section in James chapter 2, and I don't even want to look at Dave right now. He's giving me the death stare because he has no idea what I'm going to say. So it's a very sometimes controversial section of Scripture. There's been people who've debated this, and there's been books written about it, and so it's kind of a hot button. And I'm going to try to not really make it a hot button thing, but so Dave came to that point. He's like, take this, Andy. So additional punishment there, you know. So I got reading this section, and it's a great section. I read it, and I read it. You know, sometimes I read a section of Scripture again and again, and something just pops out. I'm like, wow. That is amazing, right? So that happened for me when I read the Scripture. I'm reading this, and what popped out in my head is something I love very much, and that's math. Right? How many of you love math? Oh, there's a few nerds here. Oh, this is great. So you went to school, and that was your favorite class, right? Right? You couldn't wait? So I love math. All as a kid, I thought it was great, all the different connections you can make. And, you know, growing up, loved it. I had some friends, and you know, kids always have these themed birthday parties, right? So my friend Bill, he probably had a birthday party, like a Dukes of Hazzard theme to it, or something like that, you know, something really cool. And everybody would come to that. And my friend Jack, he probably had a birthday party with chips, you know, we dressed up like rockers. Fun times, right? So we did that. You know, that me, for my birthday party, my theme was long division. And now growing up, I can see why nobody came. But to me, math is fun. It's so much fun, and we're going to look at some of this in the book of James here, that I thought I'd share this fun with you. You guys want some fun in math? Yeah. All right. So I trimmed down the notes just so you could have this fun. So if you take your takeout out, there's a piece of paper in there, and it'll say math is fun, okay? So you can get a pen out if you want to get a pen out. If you got a smartphone, you can get that out. If you have one of those Casio watches with 8,000 buttons, remember them? Remember them? Yeah, Jeff Brooke, you're still wearing it. Yeah. Right? So you can get that out, and you're ready. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick a number between 1 and 99. Now you're all going to pick out different numbers, write that on a piece of paper, do that. And then write it up in the top corner of that. If you have a calculator or something, you can choose a bigger number, as long as it's 99 or less, but write that down. You got that? Now in a situation like that, I know you're all going to have all sorts of numbers, maybe your age, maybe how many kids you have, maybe your IQ. I'm sending somebody left, right. Yeah, mine's 29. I'm going to take that right down. So what I want you to do is I want you to multiply that by 2. We're having fun already. Right? Yeah, good time. Now you take that and multiply that by 5. Write that number down. So whatever you come to, I want you to take the number that you chose, the number that you wrote down, and I want you to divide the number that you have already by the number you chose. You got that? Okay? Whatever number you chose, you divide that by that. Okay? Subtract 7 from that number.
What?
7. Subtract 7 from that number. Okay? How many of you got 3?
What sorcery is this?
What is this? It's fun with math. That's amazing. That's great. That's good. Yes, 3 is the answer. Y'all picked different numbers, got 3. I got even more fun for you. So I have a volunteer this morning that's going to help us out a little bit. She's going to probably hate me later, but for now, Shelby's going to come and do some volunteering action for us. We're going to have math is fun. Love it. She's giving me the look already.
She wants to be in front of people.
She does. She does. All right, Shelby, so what I want you to do real quick, now I can't see this, right? I can't see this. You guys can see it, but I can't. But what I want you to do is I just need you on the board to write down your shoe size. If you wear a half, just round it up, but write down your shoe size. And if you guys are out there, you can play too. This is a good time. This is not. You having fun already, Shelby? You hate me? All right, so multiply that number by 5. Okay, add 50.
Right, bigger.
Okay, multiply by 20. Okay, here comes the calculator. You got your number? Okay, add 1,018 to that number. Okay, now here's the fun part. Subtract the year you were born.
Transcribe the number wrong.
Oh, yeah.
2820. Yep.
Tell me that. Okay, so I'll just go back to the pattern. So we multiplied by 5, we added 50. We multiplied by 20. I had you add 1,018, right? Did I have you subtract the year you were born? I did. So you probably got a 3 or 4 digit number. What is that number? 844. So she wears size 8 shoes and you're 44 years old. Boom!
Nice.
Wasn't that fun? All right. Thank you, Shelby. Yes. That was fun. Wasn't that fun? All right. Now you probably will remember nothing about what I talked about today, but you're going to go home thinking, I don't know what he talked about, James, but math is fun. Math is fun. So now that we got through math class, and we got through all that, before we really get into this passage, and I did that for a reason, because when you read this passage, I want you to picture the math beside it. You're going to hear faith, without works. You're going to hear faith with works. You're going to see all these different mathematical things to do that. But we need to take a minute and we need to talk a little bit about vocabulary. Now, I don't know why I did this, but I'm thinking faith. How do you really define something that's intangible? If I wanted to define a calculator, I could pick up a calculator and show you a calculator. How would I define faith? And I'm thinking this through, I'm like, oh, duh. The Bible does this for us, right? In Hebrews 11 verses 1, it gives us an absolute definition of what faith is. So we're going to look at that real quick as far as a definition of faith. It says this: faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Faith is confidence of what we hope for and it's assurance of what we do not see. That's literally the dictionary definition of what faith is. I hope for something. We all hope for something. We do. But faith is when we act in confidence because of what I hope for. Okay? It's not just hoping for something, but I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to act in confidence. And the one thing that's important to remember about faith, faith is important that it's directed the right way. And the church answer, the Jesus answer, is our faith should be in who? Jesus. Our faith should be hoping in Jesus, in God. That's who our faith should be. So I want you to see this, to make sure that your faith is in the right place, and it's the right direction. Because there's a misteaching that goes around these days, and there's things that just don't go right, where people focus on, I just need to build my faith. Because if you just need to build your faith, it might not do you any good. And let me give you an example of my friend named Jen. So she's a good friend of mine, and she's all about faith, but hers is misdirected. She has a lot of faith. Matter of fact, she put it on Facebook, how much faith she has. She wrote down that she's clearing her schedule, and she's going to attend the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl victory party in February of 2019. A lot of faith, right? She posted it right on there. So she has faith that that's going to do. She cleared the calendar. I'm not marketing you a day. I'm going to be in Buffalo for the Super Bowl victory. That's her faith in the wrong direction. Now, she could build this faith in the wrong direction. She could sit there and she could study, all the times the Bills won the Super Bowl. That's a quick study. We do this all the time. I love football season. So she could sit there and study like great Bills of years gone by, and she could learn all about them, like O.J. Simpson, right? Yeah. Yes, he was a Buffalo girl. But so anyways, her faith is directed in that, and that's what she wants to do. So she could study that, and she could learn, she could grow, she could know everything there is to know about Buffalo Bills from the top to the bottom. But does it do her any good? Not at all. Her faith is completely in the wrong direction, and it's not there at all. So that's a problem. So we need to make sure when we do have faith, it's built in the right way to the right reason. And it's our faith in God, and it's our belief in Jesus Christ. That's our confidence, and we're going to do something about it. So that's what we mean by faith. And that's what we're going to do when we hear in James with us. Now the other aspect of it, the other part of the equation, we talked about faith, let's talk about works. Works, and the Bible uses a number of different words here. I mean, some of your Bibles might read deeds, some of it might work, and all these different words, but it's energy that you use for a reason. It's energy that you use for a reason. That's the work that I do. And I do it for a reason. Like, I love this church. I love serving God. I love the privilege of doing it. That's work that I do. That's work that you do, and it's for a reason. And one thing to remember, too, work is not always physical. I was pointed out just within the last few weeks of a lady who does a lot of work and a lot of energy, and nobody sees it. None of you know, but it's in prayer. She spends a lot of time and a lot of work in prayer for me, for Dave, for you. And she does a lot of work. So one thing that's important when you do all the works is that we don't be judgmental. When we look at someone's life and say, I can see this, but I don't see that. I see this, but I don't see that. You don't really know what people are doing. But it's work and it's energy. So this passage in James is a connection between faith and works. And how it works. So let's read this together, okay? All right, so we are in James chapter 2. We're going to look at verse 14. If you don't have a Bible with you, you grab the one in front, it's page 978. If you came today and you don't have a Bible, take that one with you. We're so emphatic about these Bibles that we have in our pews that, take it with you. If you know someone who doesn't have a Bible and you want them to have a Bible, take it with you and give it to them as a gift from us. We're thrilled with that. But if you don't have it with you, you can turn to page 978, you can see there. Otherwise, if you're using other Bibles, we're in James chapter 2, verse 14. Let's read it together. James says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to him, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, not accomplished by action, is dead. But if some will say, 'You have faith, I have deeds.' Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. Do you believe there is one God? Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. You foolish person. Do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness. And he was called God's friend. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by their faith alone. In the same way, was not even Rahab, the prostitute, considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and she sent them off in different directions. As a body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. And that's James 2, 14 through 26. Now, one thing that I want you to see about this section, James pulls no punches at all. James is very firm about what he's writing, and some might feel a little bit harsh about what he's writing inside here. He says a couple things that are a little bit startling. For one example, he makes a reference inside here about believing in God. How many times have we heard people say, "Well, I believe in God"? We hear that a lot. We'll talk to someone about faith, we'll talk to somebody about going to church, we'll talk to somebody about Christ, and they stop back, "Well, it's fine, I believe in God." And what does James say about that? Somewhere in my head, if James were alive today and he had a smartphone, would be that meme of Kermit the Frog sipping tea. Remember? We've all gotten that, seen that one. With the words, "Oh, really?" James points out to us, he is harsh. He's like, "Oh yeah, you say you believe in God? Even the demons believe in God." And they shudder. So this entire concept of just, "Oh, I believe in God and everything's fine," James isn't okay with that. He's talking about faith, and hopefully you see the math behind this. He talks about faith, and he talks about minus works, and what that all means. So James is a bit fierce, and he's a bit harsh with that. So let's talk a little bit about the mathematical equation of faith minus works. Now notice what James does. He doesn't say that faith minus works is inconvenient. He doesn't say that faith minus works is not optimal. What word does James use when he talks about your faith minus works? What word does he use? Dead. That's pretty harsh. That's a pretty harsh reality. If someone says that I have faith in God, but it produces zero works whatsoever, what does James say about your faith? It's dead. It's just, there's nothing there. It's just not legitimate. And so when he's using the scriptures to encourage, and I know he's being harsh, and I know he's being direct, but he's encouraging us. He's encouraging all of us, thousands of years later, even after he wrote it, to make sure that there's a direct connection between your faith and the works that you do. That's what he's trying to do. So he's pretty harsh with that. Faith minus works equals dead faith inside there. And he uses a very specific example of that. He uses James. Let's look at the verses, I believe it's 15 and 16. Oops, better flip the page back. Here we go. What he says in verse 15 is he says this: "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to him, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but has nothing about their physical needs, what good is it?" He says that as an example right there. It's just no good for you, and it's dead. It's nothing. So we looked at this solution, faith minus works, It's absolutely useless. Now let's flip this around a little bit and look at the math on the other way around. Let's look about the math equation. What happens if a person says, I have works, but I have no faith? And this is just a sad. Now I would never say this person's name, but I know of a person. And this person has, if you looked at their life and you looked at what they do, they produce a lot of different energy. This person, what they do is she got involved into every possible social organization she could, including a few different churches to that degree. She did. In some of her different social organizations, she put together a drive, she put together this, she put together that. She had works, deeds. If you looked at this lady's life, you would see her everywhere. And you think, this lady, when does she sleep? When does she do this? She's always doing something. How incredible is that? But I had a conversation with her one time about that. I said, doesn't that make you tired? Aren't you doing that? And she shook her head at me and says, well, yeah, it's a lot of work. But think about what people think of me when they see this. Think about what people think of me. Think about what people think of me. And whenever somebody needs this or somebody needs that, I want them to see me wherever they go. She would rotate through these different organizations. And she would do these different things just so she could see they could be as part of this. She has lots of work. She has no faith, and everything's completely redirected, and it is meaningless to her. And true story is, well, what type of things do these organizations do? What are you accomplishing inside there? Said person couldn't tell me diddly about what they actually do or what they actually accomplish. It was all about doing something within that or those organizations to make sure that she was seen and she was visible. She had lots of works, but she had zero faith. And I'm afraid some of that mindset has slipped into different churches. There are people that work hard, but they do it for the wrong reason. It's not done the right way for the right reason at the right time. It's misdirected, it's misconstrued. And what would James say about this? He'd use a mathematical equation. Works minus faith is what? Dead works. It means absolutely nothing inside there. So what I want to do today is I want to take a couple minutes and drink as much water as I can. Take a couple minutes and I want to talk about a couple areas where we can build our faith and our works. Because what I don't want to walk out of here doing, I don't want anybody thinking, okay, so if I do this, then I can do that. Or maybe I work over here first and then this will go. I want you to see faith and works as working together. James uses the phrase faith and works. So I want to do this together. So I'm going to talk about a couple different areas where we can develop our faith and we can build our works at the same time. So these are just some ideas that we put together, and I just have 3 of them. One of them is think of you personally. Don't think of anybody else. Just think of you personally. Maybe you want to write this down on a piece of paper. Where am I in my faith? Maybe you can talk about this in your small groups. Maybe you can just look at these different things. Where am I right now? Do some self-evaluation. And what I'm encouraging you to do is wherever you are, push yourself a little bit further. How do you build your faith? Okay? What our church can do is come along you and we can help you with that, building your faith. Just a couple different examples to do is our core classes. Church starts here at 10:30. A lot of us get here at 9, and we have what we call core classes. We usually have more than one to offer, but what we do is we have different topics that we discuss and we talk about, and there's a common theme from all of that. To build our faith. To become stronger followers of Christ. And we have community when we do that in our core classes. I encourage you, it's a great way to build your faith. It's a great way to do those things as our core classes. Our church is also made up of many different small groups. We've got them all throughout the area, and every small group is a little bit different. We don't carbon copy one versus the other. Some small groups take a little bit of a direction and some other ones do inside there. But what does that do? That builds community. That's a way that you can think of it wherever your personal faith is, and you can build that with that. Your own prayer life. How's your prayer life? Bible reading. Okay? And I'll tell you my confession inside here. I'm a great Bible studier. I'm a good Bible studier. If you want to give me a topic to research, if I want to do that, I can study the Bible a lot. but how much do I meditate on this reading? That's my own personal challenge and such. And I took some time this week and I just challenged myself and opened up the Psalms. And I opened up in the back of it, there's a song, there's sections inside there that's called the Psalms of the Saints. And it's these psalms that the Jewish people would sing as they went to Jerusalem. Multiple times a year they needed to go up to Jerusalem. They had to ascend. And these are songs that they would sing when they did that. They're beautiful. They're more towards the back of Psalms. And I read one. And I just stopped for a minute. I'm thinking, I'm not going to study it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to read it. I'm going to meditate on it. And I'm going to let it talk to me. And within a few minutes, I sat here crying. Like, I don't do this good enough. This is where my personal confession is and my personal challenge is. It's one thing for me to study the Bible, but it's another thing for me to read it. But this is a way we can build our faith. This is a way we can build that and make that stronger. So that's one reason. Do your own personal examination of who you are, where you are in your faith, and whatever we as a church can do to help you, we want to do that. The other one is others. The second thing to do is others. Now, one thing that followers of Christ have historically, when I mean historically been known for, even going back in AD 70 when Rome burned. Okay? Rome burned. It was burned to the ground. It was blamed on those Christians. That was what we were called back then. Who do you think stayed back to help people? It was the Christians. The people that got blamed for it stayed back, and we helped rebuild Rome. All throughout Black Plagues, whatever the case is, Christians have historical history of looking out for others. And what I'm afraid of, personally, and what I see going on, is in 2018, we live busy lives. Busy, busy, busy lives. Let's not lose the biblical principle of living out our faith and showing it works by looking around at what others do. Right? Others, people have needs. There's people around us that have needs that we probably walk right by. Let's keep our eyes wide open. Just a little bit more, and a little bit deeper, and a little bit here to look at others. James talks about in that section, and he makes reference to that. And we would look at that and we think, well, how foolish when you see somebody with no clothes, no food, and we'd go back and think, you know what, I'm going to pray for you and walk away without doing something. What does James say about our faith and our deeds if we do that? He calls it what? Dead. In another section we read inside here, he calls it useless. Right? We don't want that. So not only do we want to personally grow in our faith, but we want to keep our eyes open for others in need. I really, really do. I was so, my wife's done this a few times, and I'm just so proud of her. And she did it even more recently than that. But she saw somebody, I don't know if it was a hungry sign, or she thought somebody was homeless or something to that effect and needed food. She went and bought food. I thought that was great. I thought that was tremendous. Keep your eyes wide open, and if you see somebody in need, and you see somebody in trouble, I want us to show our faith by what we do for others. And have a mental thought of that. Wherever you go, at work, if you're at work, look around at the people you work with. Do they have needs I can help them with? I bet you they do. What about the young people in this church? It's got to be hard to be a young person in this church. Or, not just this church, anywhere. You look at some of these things these kids go through these days, and it's just like, be there for them. As grown-ups, be there for them, these kids. It's just amazing what's inside. So the first one was personal, the second one was others, and the third one I want to talk about is your church. Now, one thing I want to say about your church is you're sitting here, so we'll call this Obi. Maybe you're not from this church, wherever your home church is, or wherever you choose to go to church, or anything to that degree, think about it as the local church. I want to be clear here. The local church doesn't just happen. This isn't a coincidence that we've chosen to be here on a Sunday morning. Okay? The church was established in the book of Acts after Christ rose from the dead and went to heaven, and it's been in existence ever since then. And the church is around for a number of reasons and for a number of different things. We believe alike. This is Sunday morning. All across the country, all across the world are like-minded believers gathering together to worship and to learn. And that's amazing. And that was established by Christ. That's the church. And here you are today. You're in your local church. And we talk about your faith, and the way you can show us faith in your works is what about here? You know, what about your local church? We want to be a church who continually does a better job seeing a need and meeting that need, not only inside the building, but outside the building. If we do what we do right, we want to be here for people. Even in this church, there's people that do so many different things. They help out in the cafe, they greet people. There's people that take care of this church, or outside our church building. You ever walked out here and think, wow, this looks nice? It doesn't just happen. There's people who volunteer for that. There's people who do that. I get the privilege, and I say the privilege, to work in the kids' ministry. I love the kids here. I wish I could be there every Sunday to be with those kids. I absolutely love them. If that's something that you feel you could use for, you could work in that area, let us know. We can talk about that. Maybe we Making Cafe. We want to build a community inside this church. Our sound room. What goes on back there Sunday morning is mind-blowing. What it takes to do all this. Okay? This is your church. I'm trying to create a situation where people don't just come here on a Sunday morning and leave on a Sunday morning and that's it. That's the only connection. If that's the only connection you have to us, and that's all that's ever there, then we might not be doing everything the best way we can. Our encouragement is in some level, somehow, if this is your church, to encourage everybody to be doing something. Now remember what I said to begin with about works? It's not all visible. Remember I said that? So we're not going to sit back and judge. You might be that person who we don't see here or we don't see there, but you might be deeply engaged into prayer, writing to our missionaries, and connecting with people that we don't see. I'm not going to judge. We have no checklist, do we, of who's doing what and are we meeting our expectations or not. We don't do that. Our job is to be here to encourage you to do that. So how do we build our faith and how do we build our works and all that? Is we do it through our personal growth, we do it for keeping our mind on others, and we do it for our church. Okay? Now, if I were to stop there and just kind of wrap it up, one, we got a short sermon. You'd love that. But when I look at this passage in the book of James, what really pulled out to me more than anything else is the two people that James used in this passage to identify examples of faith. And it might not be for the reasons that you think of. Okay? It could be for other reasons. But I want to stop for a little bit and I want to talk about these two people, Abraham and Rahab. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about Abraham. So Abraham is a guy, lived in the Middle East. The Lord came to him and, boy, he gave him a promise. I mean, I'm telling you, if God's going to visit somebody and promise you something, this is it. He said, we're going to give you a child and we're going to have you move to a different location. And you bring everything with you, and wherever you go, wherever your feet walk, it's yours. Can you imagine that? If God had told us that, say, wherever you walk, that's your property. How long would you walk? A long way, right? So Abraham's like, mine, 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 mine. Wow! Right? And God did that with him because of great faith. Because of his great faith. So he did all these different things. And Abraham was an example of great faith. And he gathered everything that he had. He left his home. He went on his way. And he was known for his faith. And he was strong in his faith. But then, Abraham blew it. And he didn't blow it bad. He bloated it. I think I just nauseated Sherilyn, our local English major, right now. Abraham bloated it. Could you put that on the screen? No, she's freaking out right now. Abraham blew it in ways that I couldn't even describe for you. Now, I've blown, anybody here blown it before? Right? Yeah, we all do that. You know, I tore the tag off my pillow. Do not move, right? Yeah. Life goes on, right? There's been a lot of different things that I've not done right over the years. Abraham's mistake, and what he did, is God had made him a promise that he was going to have a son. Time went on. For about 10 or so years, he decided that God had maybe forgot, or God wasn't going to do it the way that God was supposed to do it, and Abraham took it upon himself to actually have a child with another woman, so he could have a child. And he did that. The consequences of what he did wrong are still alive today. Can you imagine that the consequences of your mistake lasting for thousands of years? What was that like? It created division with his family. It created problems with his property. Every time Abraham turned around, the failure confronted him. And I want you to know that about Abraham. We read that. Hebrews chapter 11, we started there. Half that chapter is identified to Abraham and the faith and great man that he was inside there. But I want you to see for a minute. Abraham failed miserably, as badly as you could possibly fail. He failed, he failed, he failed. And I want you to see that. What I want you to see about Abraham is in his failure grew his faith. So think about this today. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands or something, but when you evaluate your own life, have you ever really blown it? Have you ever really failed? You look at yourself sometimes and think, how did I get here? What did I do? I want you to know that Abraham is an example of a man of great faith, and I want you to see that through that faith, through that failure, came an even stronger faith. That's what I want you to see about Abraham. Through that failure came an even stronger faith. Now, more time goes by. Abraham finally has a son of his own from his own wife. He has a son of his promise. His name is Isaac. And think of everything that Abraham had with his success. Think of everything that Abraham blew with his failure. And then God comes to him and he says, Abraham, I want you to take your son, your only son, Isaac. And I want you to take some materials with you, and I want you to go to a place where I'll tell you to go. And I want you to take your own son. And I want you to bind him up. And I want you to lay him down on the altar. And I want you to cut his neck and sacrifice him to me. Wow. Abraham said, yes, God, I will. And he took his son, and they traveled. And even at one point during that traveling, Isaac says, Dad, I see the fire making. I see the wood. Where's the sacrifice? Think of that, how it made Abraham feel. Ripped his heart right out. Abraham answers, God will provide himself a sacrifice. And Isaac's okay with it. I don't know what it was like. I really don't. My mind might just go sometimes. What about Isaac on that moment? I wonder how he reacted. Did he trust his dad? We don't know this, by the way. Did he fight? We don't know this, by the way. It doesn't tell us that. But what we know is someplace whether Isaac offered himself sacrificially to his own father for that. We don't know that. But we know that Abraham got to a place when his faith was so strong, he was willing to take a knife and start a downward swing to cut his own son's neck because God asked him to. Now we do know the whole story. God says, stop. I've seen your faith. So what I want you to do when you see Abraham, I wanted you to see a person who had it all, lost it all, and his faith recuperated. His faith came back stronger. He made these decisions that he was going to be stronger, and he did what he could do to build his faith and his God. Whatever God asked him to do, he did it. And so it's not by accident or choice that James talks about Abraham in this passage. But that's one. Let's look at the other person. The other person in this section that they talk about is Rahab the prostitute. Rahab the prostitute. Now, I don't know why the Bible is written the way it does, and I don't know. But from what I can understand, about every time Rahab's name is ever mentioned, her former occupation goes with it. Rahab the prostitute. Rahab the harlot. You can find it in Judges chapter 2. You can find it all throughout there. And even in Hebrews 11, she's referenced in this section in Hebrews chapter 11. Did I just blow something up?
No.
Okay. In Hebrews chapter 11, she's referenced inside there. And even when she's talking about her faith, she's still identified as a prostitute. Boy, it's gotta be hard, right? Your occupation going with you. But what would I do? Andy the ugly. I don't know. But I just think about that. But Rahab, let's talk about her a little bit. So Rahab was an occupant of a city called Jericho. And in Israel's history, when Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, led them into the promised land. So after that, I just lost him. Joshua, thank you, Jeff. Joshua. So Joshua takes over. Thanks.
I was looking at Matthew 1 to see if she was identified in Matthew 1, and so I lost track.
So Joshua takes over in there, and they start conquering city after city. You know, they're not all successes, but when the Israelites come and they take over a city, they take it over harshly. It's not just, hey, we won the battle, we annihilated who these people were, and we won everything, and we won big. And on comes to Jericho. Now Rahab, the prostitute, she was a resident of Jericho at the time. And we don't know the circumstances behind it. I don't think any ill will was behind it, anything to that degree. So these spies go out to spy out Jericho and see what they were. And they end up hiding in Rahab's house. Probably because it's very conveniently located right on the city wall. The Bible tells us that. That's where she was. The spies are inside there, and she hides them inside her house. Everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be fine. Nobody's going to know you're here. She hides these spies. But then the king of Jericho finds out. He knows exactly what's going on. He sends them, his people, to go get Rahab and bring her to the king. So Rahab has to go stand before the king and answer to him. And he says to him, I know that you have those spies. I know that you hid them, and I want you to bring them out to me so that we can capture them. I want you to do that. And Rahab says, oh, they're gone. But if you send your people that way, and you go chase them down, this is what direction they went, and you can go get them that way. So she comes back to her house. Again, the spies are actually hidden in her house, and she tells them, all right, I sent the king's big soldiers that way. You get out and you go this way. Go out this way into the woods, hide for 3 days, and when you leave those woods, go by the riverside to get back where you need to go. She protected them. She did that. The Bible also tells us that there was an agreement that was made between Rahab, the prostitute, and these spies. And what they said in that was, when you come and conquer Jericho, I want you to promise me that you'll save my household. And those spies said that to her. They made that deal with her. They said, whoever you have in your house, when we come and invade your land, we will protect. And Rahab did that. And amazingly, in theology as it goes, Rahab actually ends up in the line of Christ. And she's referenced inside there. And that's what he was looking up in Matthew chapter 1. Is she there?
I knew she was there. I just didn't know if she was identified as Rahab the prostitute.
Was she?
No.
Okay.
Just Rahab.
Just Rahab. Hey, Rahab! In Matthew, she lost her designation. So Rahab does that.
Nice.
Okay? And it saves them, and Israel comes in, conquers Jericho, saves Rahab's household, and all that in there. Now, that's a great story. That's an amazing story. And James references her faith. And one thing that I want you to see about the two of them together, inside there, is Abraham's faith and Rahab's faith. They took great risks. Now, let's talk about Rahab for a little bit. Inside here. One thing that pointed out about Rahab, okay? Rahab was all in. And how much do you think that she knew about God? Very little. Rahab had no formal education about anything Israel, anything God, anything there. She knew who God was, and she feared him, and she was all in. You get that? This is the extent of her faith. She knew there was a God. She knew he was to be feared. And she was all in. I don't know anything about him. I don't know his name. I don't know the doctrine. I don't know anything. But I fear him, and I'm all in. And her all in took great risks. She was willing to take great risks for that. So when you look at these two examples of faith, what I want you to see is I want you to see someone who had great faith, blew it, learned from his lesson, and had greater faith. But I also want you to see Rahab. I want you to see a person who had very little faith. Okay? But she did great things with it. It's not about how much your faith is or how strong your faith is. It's about who your faith is in. So you could be listening to me today. You could be watching online, something to that effect. And you think, you know what, Andy, I can't compare myself with an Abraham, someone who's got great faith and great promise from God, anything to that degree. I can't do that. But I could identify with someone like Rahab, who had so little knowledge, who had so little background, who had so little anything going on. But you know what? With as little as she knew, she was absolutely all in no matter what on here. So those are the two examples that they did, and they took great rest. So here's a challenge inside there for us too, okay? How much risk are we willing to take for the Lord? What's our faith going to be like when we're challenged? What is our faith going to be like when the obstruction comes? When the enemy comes to try to trip us up? Are we going to only live by faith and do our work but everything is going great? What about the times when we're asked to take a great risk for Christ? When the Lord comes to us and shows us, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. I want our faith and our works to be equal inside this. Because of who our faith is in and what our faith is doing, I want us to do something for that. I want us to be a church, I want us to be as followers of Christ, of people who are willing to take great risks for Christ. And when the obstruction comes, when something dangerous comes, when the risk comes, let's stop, refocus, and move forward. Because we want to be people that live by faith.